First few are going to be kind of rough because it's quite hard to find you shit. But once we get to like Cliff Branch and people
Yeah, yeah.
All that crap I learned last year with all those fucking great games and all that fucking shit's gone.
By who? Who took it out?
Fucking Q.
Why would he take that out?
Saving up fucking service. It's like, for Christ's sake, if you're going to be the Raiders station, you're hold on, Raiders. I got the other two. Step into the action with
F1X, a cutting-edge 4D experience where you design your own. All right, we should be live, and we're going to be rocking today. Quick disclaimer, I had a dentist appointment today, and they had to numb me up. And my whole side of my face is not swollen, it's numb. I thought it'd stop being numb by now. So, man, it's weird. You know when you get a needle in your mouth and it's perfectly numb? It's supposed to wear off by now, but it hasn't. So if I drank this, it would just dribble down my face. But we sound and look good. What do you think of the Jalen Ramsey move? Should that guy have been a Raider on another team? Let us know. Today we're going to talk about Mike Davis and our greatest Raider draft picks of all time in hour number 2. Paul Gutierrez at the bottom of the hour. And we'll go from there. Yeah, that was a good move, Big D. I mean, the Steelers, there's a big Raider story, man. Steelers are all in. They're all in, and they play in the AFC. That's literally a team that the Raiders are going to be competing for a wild card. If you think the Raiders are a wild card team, where some of you guys think they are. I'm not making up my mind yet on that topic until August.
KRLV Las Vegas. You're listening to the JT the Brick Show, where the Raider Nation has come to sound off and react for over 20 years.
It's the JT the Brick Show, broadcasting live from the Finley Cadillac Performance Studio.
Raiders bring a blitz. He takes up off the middle, and he's wrapped up from behind. Max Crosby.
Your silver and black home to sound off for over 20 years.
Open at the 35, racing to the 20, 10, touchdown Raiders.
And now, here's JT the Brick.
Out of the gate, JT, as we begin a new week on the flagship of the Silver and Black. Raider Nation Radio on the Raiders mobile app, LV Sports Network. And good to be here on Monday. A little bit of a disclaimer. I had a dentist appointment early this morning. Had to give me a little shot of Novocaine to numb something, and it's still numb. So if I drank a glass of water right now, it would fall down my face. I could not feel the water. And if it sounds like I might be slurring a little bit, it should wear off here in the first half hour of the show. No Modelo's for me this morning. Completely great. I'm clean during the week. I have my bucket of Modelo's on Friday. And this Friday, I'll be gone. I'll be in Boston, Beantown. Going to go back east to Bobby's old neck of the woods with the wife, kids, and in-laws and some people back home here. But we're getting away. We're going to go east to see some family. My wife's never been to Boston, and she's backpacked the world. I mean, she's traveled more than I have, and I traveled a lot. And we're going to spend a couple of days in Boston on the water. Then we're going to spend some time in New York, in Long Island, see the folks, see the parents in New Paltz, New York, and get a little downtime in, and then come back, and it's completely dominated by Raiders preseason, the preseason games that I'll be on the broadcast with, the pre- and post-game show. And we kind of start every year mid-July, and we don't stop till after the Super Bowl. And we get a bye week, which is good. and maybe a weekend here or there. If the Raiders play on a Thursday night, you get the weekend. But that's the way it goes with shows on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday night on Sirius, and what I do 5 days a week here. This is the summer, and today we'll continue with our summertime radio project, the best and most influential draft picks in Raiders history. Today we're going to do Mike Davis. Mike's a two-time Super Bowl champion. Mike died before his wife, Mary, who just died, and the Raiders put out a big statement on the passing of Mary Davis, which was huge. She had a big impact in the NFLPA and with the Raiders organization. If you go to Raiders.com, you'll see all the information about her. I had the pleasure of meeting her a number of times at alumni events, at Mike's Celebration of Life, which was at Green Valley Ranch a couple of years ago, which I was able to attend. So we thought it would be a good day to start off this week with Mike Davis. We'll have two more tomorrow, including another Colorado Buffalo, Greg Biekert. Greg Biekert gets in tomorrow. We're going to use Greg Biekert early in our greatest draft picks of all time. This isn't the top 10. The top 10 will happen later on in the summer. But we're going to be talking about players that were drafted by the Raiders and had a big impact on the team. And there'll be kickers and punters and linebackers and players you remember. And we're doing this, as we say, we're doing this obviously to try to educate the new fans in Las Vegas. Nothing against them. They don't know the history like you do in Oakland or you do in LA or you do around the country if you were a Raider fan in the 70s and 80s and you go back really far with the team. So it's kind of an education, fun, kind of a look back at the history of the Raiders. That's one of the things I like to do, as you know. And then we'll count it down 10 to number 1, and we'll do that, and it won't be controversial. It'll be fun. You know, we might have Jim Otto 5th. We might have Marcus Allen 3rd. We don't know. We're going to get to that and get an opinion from everybody there. Yeah, Red Right 88 today. You'll hear the sound of it as Bobby does a good job, and we'll kick that off in hour number 2. Paul Gutierrez at the bottom of the hour. He was also over at the Hall of Excellence. I was there again on Saturday. I've been pumping that up for Tom Brady and Jim Gray. If you live in Vegas or coming to Vegas, it's something definitely that you would have to see. All right, the monologue is brought to you by Golden Entertainment. They own the Strat. I've been recommending a lot of people stay there, and they get back to me and say, thanks for the recommendation. The rooms were cheaper. They were newer. The pool's great. The restaurants are great. Top of the world, the rides. Please head on out to the Strat and take a look at it if you haven't been there in a while. There was a blockbuster NFL trade today that will have an effect on the Raiders. A blockbuster deal today that will definitely have an effect on the Silver and Black. Ian Rappaport was on vacation in Tulum, but he thought it was big enough to break the story.
We have a blockbuster trade. I know it is June 30th, but a blockbuster NFL trade. Here's what we got. Sources tell me and colleague Tom Pelissero, Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, and a 7th-round pick, a blockbuster, are going from the Miami Dolphins to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This Jalen Ramsey deal gives him a raise, $1.5 million more than he was going to make. It was dead a week ago. It is now very much alive and happening. Pittsburgh Steelers have not stopped, loaded up since they got DK Metcalf, Aaron Rodgers, now Jalen and Jonnu Smith. So who goes back? It's a future 5th-round pick, okay? It is also all-pro safety Minkah Fitzpatrick. So Minkah goes to the Dolphins, a reunion, while the Steelers continue to load up.
All right, I like Minkah Fitzpatrick as much, if not more, than Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey would have been a great fit for the Raiders, but I said I didn't think the Raiders would go there because the price was too expensive. The price was too expensive, and the compensation's up to $26.6 million for him this year. The Steelers are taking on the bulk of Ramsey's contract for this season, with the Dolphins paying about $3 million. So Ramsey is 30, and he confirmed he's going to Pittsburgh, and he's excited about that. But as Ian Rappaport said, the term that I'm hearing all day this morning and today on the debate shows is they are all in. Well, isn't everybody all in? The Raiders are all in. They hired Pete Carroll. Tom Brady brought in as minority owner. Okay, they brought in Geno Smith. They drafted Ashton Genty. They're kind of all in. But the Raiders aren't as good as the Steelers yet. Fact, not fiction, just by record and what the Steelers do every year. So I wanted Aaron Rodgers to be the quarterback of the Raiders a couple of years ago. Now he's a Steeler. They're saying they're all in. Well, what would have happened if we went back in the hot tub time machine and got Aaron Rodgers the way I suggested a couple of years ago over Jimmy Garoppolo? The Raiders would have been categorized as all in at the time. If the Raiders went and got out Jalen Ramsey today and did a deal with him and made a trade, I think fans would be saying the Raiders are all in. Well, I don't think the Raiders wanted to spend that type of money on one player in a secondary where they have some good young players that are developmental players. And Pete Carroll wants to bring in taller, lankier players. And Jalen Ramsey fits that mold. He's tall. He's a ball hawk. He's really good. If Jalen Ramsey came to the Raiders, as I said, I would have went and picked him up at the airport for you. I think that's a good player, but I think his price is too high. But why does it affect the Raiders? Because now several insiders are reporting, because of what's happening with this deal here, with Jonnu Smith leaving, that the Dolphins are in the market for a tight end, and could that be Michael Mayer? So I'm not reporting that. Paul Gutierrez is joining us in 20 minutes. I'll ask him about that, but you would know that everybody's been talking about, will Michael Mayer be on the Raiders? He seems to have had a really good camp. Pete Carroll and him are on the same page, but anything could happen. The Dolphins are looking for a tight end. We have Brock Bowers. Michael Mayer is a backup, but a starter to Brock Bowers. Would he be available in a trade that could potentially bring someone else to the Raiders? I don't know, but I'm telling you one thing. There's no doubt that the Dolphins are going to get a a tight end. No doubt about that. And they lose Fitzpatrick, who heads back to Miami where he began his career with the Dolphins. He was the 11th overall pick in the 2018 draft. And Ramsey's got 24 interceptions in his career. That's a good loaded cornerback group with the Steelers. They have Darius Slade Jr. They added him in free agency. And you remember a kid named Joey Porter Jr.? They just drafted him. That is clearly a much better secondary than the Raiders have. Not close. Okay, they play in the AFC. The Raiders play in the AFC. I told you a couple of weeks ago on this broadcast that if you believe the Raiders are going to make the playoffs, I hope they make the playoffs. If you believe they are going to have to take a wild card away from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just nailed the whole monologue. That's what happened today. So if you believe that the Raiders are a wild card team, which I hope they are, and they can play and they can win the division, but I'm not going there until Kansas City gets dethroned. We're not doing this. We're winning the Super Bowl and we're beating Kansas City until you prove to me we can. And until someone can hit Travis Kelce at the line of scrimmage as he's an old man hanging out with Taylor Swift and someone puts his hands on him, which I think we're going to do now with Pete Carroll. Because I don't think Pete Carroll is going to stand for Travis Kelce getting a free 5-yard release as he does in every damn play he's ever played against this organization. Travis Kelce's had no one touch him, and he's run free, and he's getting a Hall of Fame jacket with the Raiders emboldened on the inside cover because no one guards him. So we got new linebackers here. I hope one of them wants to put their hands on Kelce. Jalen Ramsey's the type of guy who puts his hands on you. I was in Miami last year. He had an interception against the Raiders. So I'm not losing my mind. It was like Stephon Gilmore a couple of years ago, Jalen Ramsey. Would have been a nice fit for the Raiders. Aaron Rodgers would have been a good fit for the Raiders a couple of years ago. But the theme of the monologue today is simply this. And it's very important you get what I'm about to say. There's a handful of teams, that the Raiders are competing against for wild cards. Would you like me to give them to you? Take a pen out or just listen to it on the podcast. These are the teams that the Raiders, if they want to get into the playoffs, have to compete for a wild card. I don't think it's going to be the Patriots or the Jets. The Patriots were 4-13. The Jets were 5-12. The Raiders were a 4-win team, but I think Miami has taken a major step back. They were 8-9. I think the whole AFC East is toast. Just my opinion, my guess this year, it'll be the Buffalo Bills as the 1 seed. I'm in on Buffalo again. I'm in big on Buffalo again. Might be my Super Bowl pick. So I got Buffalo. So, of course, the Patriots, Jets, or the Dolphins, one of those teams in December is going to be in the wild card hunt. But I don't think any of those teams are going to make the wild card. That's a bold prediction. But, oh, boy, the AFC North, you got the Ravens, the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Browns. Let's throw out the Browns with the bathwater. They're out. Who's going to win that division? Last year it was Baltimore at 12-5. Let's give it to Baltimore again. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati are both going to be competing for the wild cards. 2 could come out of that division. Then we're going to go to the AFC South. In the AFC South, Houston seems like the team that's going to win that division. Indianapolis has Daniel Jones as their quarterback. Indy's pretty good. They're not a bad team. And Jacksonville seems like they're in a rebuild with Travis Hunter, and the Titans were the worst team in football. Titans were 1-7 at home. We play them in Vegas this year. So I'm going to go Houston's going to win the division. No wild cards there. But then it comes down to the AFC West, where if you forgot, Kansas City was 15-2. So before you tell me Kansas City isn't going to win the division, wait till it's a year where they're 11-6 or 10-7 to tell me that. They were 15-2 last year, 8-0 at home, pretty much bringing back the same team. So the Raiders for a wild card are competing against the 2 teams that were better than them by a lot last year, the Chargers and the Broncos. So we found out today that the theme is Pittsburgh went all in with Jalen Ramsey and what they're doing there. Do you believe that? As a Raider fan, they were 10-7 last year, 10-7, but they lost their last 4 games in a row. They are on a 4-game losing streak. They didn't want Russell Wilson and they didn't want Justin Fields. And they decided to go with Aaron Rodgers. And now everybody's talking about they're an old age home, all their players are older. And as Adam Schefter said today, they're all in to go to the Super Bowl this year. Pump the brakes on the Super Bowl, please. Yeah. With the Steelers. Let's pump the brakes. But in theory, they're going to meet at training camp coming up here believing that they're competing for the Super Bowl. How would you like to be in that meeting room with T.J. Watt, who's in the news today because he doesn't have a deal? And they're trying to stir the pot, saying, well, that they did the Ramsey deal before T.J. Watt. They're going to do the T.J. Watt deal just like we did the Max Crosby deal. They're going to do the T.J. Watt deal. So how would you like to be sitting on the bus playing Pittsburgh and rolling into the stadiums, Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Ramsey, T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, DK Metcalf? They're pretty good. So where would you, and this is what can maybe drive a few phone calls today, summertime radio, where would you today put the Steelers and the Raiders? It's a good topic because it's important on where your expectations are and how I can't be a mind reader. I have to hear your voice or read your tweet or look in my chat, which is pumping right now at JT the Brick on YouTube, JT the Brick YT. Specific question of the day is where do you put the Steelers, who is the topic of the day? The Pittsburgh Steelers own sports today. Where would you put them with the Raiders? I'm sure some fans are going to say way ahead of the Raiders. I don't know. No, Gino's good. Oh, no, those who say Gino got into a fight this weekend at a flag football game, no, he didn't. Gino was talking trash. A bunch of guys were talking trash. Gino was having fun. No punches were thrown. No handcuffs. Gino was trash talking. Someone got on video. And then a couple of these clickbait sites are like, Geno Smith in a fight. No, he's not. He wasn't in a fight. Looked into it. Just a little trash talking. Good to see Geno telling everybody he's Geno down there. And that's the way they play football. As he said down there, they trash talk a little bit. So no big deal there. But where do you have the Raiders and the Steelers? Do you have them neck and neck? Do you have the Raiders above the Steelers? Do you have the Raiders slightly behind the Steelers? Or do you have the Raiders significantly behind the Steelers? And if you say you have them behind them, then I would say, well, where do you have the Bengals and the Ravens and the Chargers and the Broncos and Kansas City and Buffalo? We had a blockbuster deal go down today in our conference, the AFC. You better believe that affects the Raiders. It does on this show, because whenever a team that's competitive historically with the Raiders, the Immaculate Deception, all the great games played against the Steelers, they made a move today. Could the Raiders have made that move? Yeah, Raiders could have made that move. But I don't think they needed to, because I think Jalen Ramsey was too expensive. Now, if he came to the Raiders, again, I would have been happy about it because it's not my money. But I think they want to use that money for other pieces going forward. I thought the Raiders did a lot in the offseason to upgrade the roster. They did. Now, they lost a couple of really good defensive players. that left. Robert Spillane left. Trayvon Merrick left. They bring in Jeremy Chin. They bring in Devin White, a couple of linebackers. They feel like they're going to be pretty good. But the Raiders could definitely use a Minkah Fitzpatrick or a Jalen Ramsey. And those two guys just went down in a trade today. I didn't know Minkah Fitzpatrick was available, a player I like a lot, until this deal went down. He was available. He was part of a trade. So your opinion on that at 702-365-9200. Does this concern you all in Raider Nation or the fans who aren't Raider fans who are checking us out? Is this a big deal or a no big deal, a nothing burger, as they like to say? I think it proves that the Steelers are all in. I do believe that. You don't have Aaron Rodgers. They didn't bring in Aaron Rodgers to do this swan song, to go out on a rocking chair and go around with a golf cart and get gifts from the city of Pittsburgh. They brought him in there to win games. So they're looking to win. If I'm a Steeler fan today, which I'm not, I'd be pretty happy today. If I'm a Steeler fan today, I'm walking around popping my collar saying, we're better than most people think. And that's another player you're adding that's going to pick off Joe Burrow this year. That's another guy that when Lamar Jackson's looking downfield and wants to run, Jalen Ramsey can come over and crack him. And in the division, I think that's a good pick, but they do lose Minkah Fitzpatrick, who I think is a pretty good player. I've liked him a lot. Over the years on that. So that's a topic I want to hear from. Also, if you have a call on Mike Davis before or after we profile him, if you want to call on Red Right 88 or Mike and the impact that he had, I'd love to hear from you, because that's the other thing we're looking to do is get some of the legendary callers and new callers to talk about these players. And then finally, the other thing I wanted to get in here is NBA free agency, which is open for business. Oh, I don't know. This stuff frustrates me. Like every guy who averages 6 points a game gets $10 million a year. Have you noticed this crap? Like, we're renewing this guy who averages 6.5, guy in Cleveland, I don't even know his name, 6.5 points a game and 1.9 rebounds, gets $10 million a year. But the most important news here is that LeBron James opted in on his $52 million opt-in. Oh, my God. So LeBron James has decided to opt in, why wouldn't you, on $52.6 million. But LeBron has the balls with his agent, Rich Paul, the balls to say, we're evaluating what the roster looks like. Are you kidding me? You're taking $52 million of the cap, which he kind of deserves. Him and Steph Curry did not make the money that some of these knuckleheads are making now, and they've been in the league 20 years. Not Steph, but LeBron. LeBron didn't get paid a lot when he came into the league comparable to now. But if LeBron wanted to do a deal and make the Lakers better, what LeBron would do is take the $52 million and really play for 30 and then let the Lakers go out there and do a deal and bring in some other players to win a championship. And there seems to be no takers for LeBron. If you're going to trade for LeBron, get this. You got to pay him $52 million. I look around the league, no one's got $52 million for LeBron. Nobody. Yeah. So you'd have to unload 5 or 6 players to equal that amount of money, or 3 or 4, to go do a LeBron James deal. And then my son and I got into a little argument, not heated, but my son likes James Harden for some reason. I don't know why I raised him. I don't know how he can love James Harden. But Harden declined his $36.3 million option in exchange for a 2-year deal worth $81.5 million. 2 years, $81 million. How stupid do you got to be to give James Harden $81 million? He had a pretty good year last year. He's third-team All-NBA. I get it. He's one of the great scorers in the modern era. He is a cancer on several teams. Brooklyn, Houston, where he got fat and quit. Now he plays for the Clippers. If the Warriors want to pay a guy $81 million, or Oklahoma City does, they just won a title, or the famed Boston Celtics want to do that, I'd go, okay. Those are the Clippers. They're owned by Steve Ballmer, one of the richest owners in sports. Why would Steve Ballmer think it's that important to give James Harden $81 million? Let's talk about that for a second. Well, maybe he believes he's got his brand new arena, which is supposedly gorgeous, even though it's in the hood. Inglewood, in the hood, always up to no good. Remember, they play in the hood. I know the hood. I know the hoods around this country. They play in the hood, Inglewood. They need people to go there. Why would you go to a game in Inglewood to see the Clippers when you can go to the Lakers? Not that the Lakers play in the greatest neighborhood either in LA, but the Clippers share that SoFi parking lot. It's a dump. And for all of our LA fans, get over it. I lived in LA 10 years. I know LA. So I guess he believes that he's not going to be able to fill up his arena unless he gives Harden $81 million. Does that math sound smart? Wow. So the big topic with the NBA, to include you in the show, because again, we're not going to ask you to call the show for T-shirts and wristbands. We want to hear your sports opinions, please. The league now is completely out of control because the league is making so much money on streaming. And NBC is back in, and Amazon's in. Everybody's in. That the players have collectively agreed to get about 49% of the revenue. So if the revenue goes up and up, and these deals are going up and up, you have to pay the players. You have to give them the money, half of it. So does that mean you give guys $81 million for 2 years? Why in life? And tell me if this happens at your job. I've had several cool jobs in my life. The only time I ever got more money is when I did something that deserved more money. As a stockbroker or radio host, Raiders, whatever it is. When my bosses deem, hey, you did a good job, we're going to give you more money because you deserve it. That's great. But where did we get to a point in sports that when the calendar flips from 2008 to 2018 to 2024, everybody gets a raise? What is going on here? Everybody does not deserve more money in life just because the calendar changed. It doesn't work out that way if you're a UPS driver, if you're a cop, if you're a teacher. Hey, man, 20 years ago I made this much. I deserve double? No, you're not going to get double. But these basketball players are getting quadruple in their late 20s to 30s. And some of them don't deserve a raise, and they're getting a raise. And I just told you James Harden's at the top of that list. So those are a couple of topics I threw out here because I wait around all day to do the show all weekend. And I'd like to hear from you, 702-365-9200. If we ever get to a point in the summer where we can't talk sports, we'll just take more summer vacation. And we are here now to talk sports with you. And Jalen Ramsey went to the Steelers, and that should be a wake-up call to the Raider Nation. And everybody in Raider Nation should say, ooh, wait a second. We know Pittsburgh. They beat us a lot. They just got better. What are we doing? I'm pretty confident that the Raiders are in a really good space with Spytek and Carroll. I think they got the players that they want. I believe, my just opinion, they'll add another player. When a good player gets cut from another team at the end of camp, I think the Raiders will pounce and bring in another good player. Don't know who that's going to be. But this was a blockbuster deal today. Absolute blockbuster. So Astrum headsets is what I'm wearing now. New sponsor to the show. We have them here for a little bit longer. Their technology is one of a kind. Go to astrumtech.com if you want the same headphones I'm wearing. They're fantastic. I'm going to wear them on my flight this week. Noise cancellation, best I've ever had. Paul Gutierrez will join us here at the bottom of the hour. And then Mike Davis. So from some of our old timers out there who are young, but you're an old time Raider fan, tell us a Mike Davis story. You should all know Red Right 88. Am I going to get a Red Right 88 story today on that game? Because we'll profile him as we look back at the greatest and most influential Raider draft picks of all time in our summer series. Yep. Yep. Sounds good. I don't know, Snow Raider. The Steelers' window's closing. Doesn't act like it today. It didn't look like it closed today. I did not see the F1 movie. I did not. One of my sons saw it. I think my youngest son saw it.
Coming back?
So, yeah, it's starting to come back. Talking and yelling, got my mouth going. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I agree with Big D. I don't think the Steelers window ever closes. They just know how to win. But, you're right. Make a good point, Snow Raider, that they're trying to make moves because they're not getting any younger. I think that's an issue. I agree with that.
Pro Football Talk had a thing about Michael Mayo
Did they?
about 10 minutes ago, yeah.
All right. Thank
Talking
you.
about Dolphins are looking at the Mayo.
Okay. Yeah, let's see if there's Raheem Mostert blast him. Michael Mayer is one of the tight ends the Dolphins are interested in. All right. Dolphins also brought in Alec Ingold. Remember him? The first Raider to ever score a touchdown in Vegas. All right.
Modelo is an official cerveza of the Las Vegas Raiders and the JT the Brick Show. Modelo Especial is a rich, full-flavored Pilsner-style lager, delivering a crisp, refreshing taste. Brewed with fighting spirit since 1925.
Running a business gets more complicated every year, so you need a trusted advisor in your corner, especially when it comes to your workers' comp program. Pro Group Management has been helping Nevada's self-insured businesses for over 20 years. Whether your business is retail, trucking, building, agriculture, or auto,
All right.
has the expertise to ensure your coverage meets your needs.
Yeah, I'm gonna got my mother-in-law in town, my father-in-law in town. We're gonna take a couple days, go to Boston. Has anybody here on the thread, other than Bobby, have any Boston roots? I'm going to Boston for the 4th of July, which actually I think for the 4th of July might be one of the coolest places in the country to be.
Going to the Esplanade, go early.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to.
If you go about 4 o'clock, you're going to be with them on the
Yeah.
other side of the pipe.
Yeah, what my wife said too is if we go to the Esplanade and we go there during the day, we can go back. We got a great hotel room. We can go back to the city and watch the fireworks from a rooftop or something like that. I don't have to be on the Charles for the fireworks.
No. But the fireworks go off to the Charles, but the big deal is the Boston Pops concert.
Yeah.
Usually they have like a couple of big names come in, Beyonce or whatever.
Paul Gutierrez joins us. Yep, he's ready. My son told me to get more involved with the chat, which I will. I'm going to be reading more of these.
This is Mike Tomlin coming back.
Yeah, I'm going to be reading more.
TJ Watt. Hey, Paul, it's Bobby with JT. How you doing? Doing all right. I'll get up with JT. Give me about a minute, okay?
Who's that? Your gal?
Nope. Here we go. Come on.
Brought to you by Tito's Handmade Vodka, America's original craft vodka. Visit Tito'sVodka.com.
I'm not surprised by it, but it doesn't mean that it's not appreciated. I just come to expect it because he's got unique talent. He's got a unique approach. And so usually that produces unique results with a really consistent tone to it and usually at the most timely moments. And so, I think the new Steelers are shaking their heads. I think the guys that have been here kind of expect it.
Mike Tomlin on DK Metcalf, JT, back with you, brought to you by Grimaldi's, best pizza I've ever had. 4 locations in the Valley, Summerlin and Boca Park on the Strip, Southwest Vegas, South of Rainbow. I was just there in Green Valley on Easton Avenue. Fantastic service, great people. So the breaking news today, Jalen Ramsey to the Dolphins. Omar Kelly of the Miami Herald says the Raiders, Michael Mayer, is one of the tight ends that Miami has had an eye on for, quote, a while. We bring in Paul Gutierrez from the Raiders. And, Paul, thanks for a few minutes today. We got a lot to cover, but what did you think about this Jalen Ramsey move? Because I thought he'd be a decent fit for the Raiders for obvious reasons, but I thought the price tag was too high.
Yeah, it always goes to price tag, JD. Thanks for having me on. And I think, I heard you speaking earlier about the Steelers are going all in. When are they not going all in? I mean, really, we're talking about guys, you and I are kind of the similar age. And since I've been born, the Steelers have only had 3 coaches. So the continuity is king in Pittsburgh. And I guess really at the end of the day, it just shows that Mike Tomlin just simply refuses to have a losing season because he's been there for 18 plus years and he has yet to have that losing season. So it's real interesting to see the moves that they're able to make, and salary cap be damned, and teams want somebody, they'll make it happen.
Yeah, for this move, it's really interesting because they have to now go get a tight end. All accounts are they want one. And you and I sat next to each other and interviewed Michael Mayer, and he was fabulous when he sat down with us. And Pete Carroll talked to us about Michael Mayer, and he seems like he's a good fit here after what happened with him missing a lot of games last year. I never think a player is safe, especially a young player that has a better player at his position, more productive than Brock Bowers. Do you think that Michael Mayer could be in play for a trade?
If they think they can get somebody that is equivalent in value, it's all about value at this point. You've got a first-team All-Pro tight end already with Brock Bowers coming back. Michael Mayer, you're right. He missed some time last year, but it seems like the staff is all in on him. And even talking with Chip Kelly and talking with other people in that locker room, they've talked not only about having 12 personnel, but 13 personnel. So throwing all those guys out there at the same time, the tight ends. So they like him, but like you said, man, the NFL is not for long. If they can get something, if they think they can improve their roster, why not make that? So again, what are you going to get back in return from Michael Mayer? Because he still is a second-round draft pick, only entering his 3rd year in the NFL.
One more thing, Paul Gutierrez joins us from the Raiders on this Jalen Ramsey deal. You mentioned they're always all in. I agree with you on that. There was a chance the Raiders could have got Aaron Rodgers a couple of years ago over Jimmy G, but he was $50 million. Now the price is really good for Aaron Rodgers, but he's 2 to 3 years older than when he could have been a Raider. And then DK Metcalf, that's some of the players that they have. I think if the Raiders and Raider fans want to make the playoffs as a wild card team, Pittsburgh's one of those teams that's probably going to make the playoffs as a wild card team. How much better do you think the Steelers are today with this move?
Well, roster-wise, they've improved themselves dramatically, But again, that's not the games are not played. Looking at the rosters or Stratomatic or whatever it may be. I know I'm dating myself there a little bit, but yeah, in terms of just pure talent, they've improved. There's no doubt about that, and that's one of the teams that the Raiders are going to have to compete with, like you said, for a wild card, because you got to take those baby steps first before you can run. So it's interesting, again, to see them going in, because they were one of the teams that when the offseason started, you're like, okay, well, what are they going to do? Where are they going to go? Who's the quarterback going to be? And now you see them kind of picking up their speed and going forward. And continuity, again, like I mentioned right at the top here, is key. They don't panic. And it's interesting because that was Aaron Rodgers' catchphrase a couple years ago, relax. And it seems like that's exactly what the Steelers have done this offseason. Paul
Gutierrez is our guest. Let's get to the Hall of Excellence. I've been there a few times. I'm blown away by that because I'm blown away by sports memorabilia that tells a story. And I think a big part of the story is how Jim and Fran Gray took their collection, asked for other people to donate, but it wouldn't be what it is without Tom Brady's rings. I think the hook to it is if you live in Boston and you're a Boston and New England Patriot fan, you want to go see Tom Brady's rings. You can't see it at Boston Commons. You got to fly to Vegas, and that's just going to make it better and better, plus an A-list property around the world at Fontainebleau.
It's a phenomenal place. It's kind of gets the white glove treatment. It's a very serene environment. You walk through there. It actually kind of reminds me of Canton a little bit, where you walk through the bus, where you got to be quiet and you got to kind of observe what's really in there. And my eyes went to Michael Jordan's first pair of Air Jordans that he wore in 1984. Then it went over to, which I'm sure attracted you, the Babe Ruth bat from the 32 World Series, to Reggie Jackson's mitt from 77. But yeah, the big trophy room, it's phenomenal. And I would put it this way, and as I kind of wrote about it, it's for those of us that came of age in the 90s, it's kind of like the All-Star Cafe, but on steroids, but in a good way, because there's just a little bit of something for everybody in there. It's not for the hardcore Vegas sports fan, at least not yet. And this is what Jim Gray told me, was the exhibits are going to be ever revolving and ever growing and things. So I'm looking forward to seeing when it pays tribute to the local teams, whether it's the Rebels winning the 1990 championship, whether it's Randall Cunningham being in the College Football Hall of Fame. things like that. But it's a very, very cool environment to go in there if you're just a sports fan in general. And with Tom Brady's contributions and Jim Gray, they both said they basically emptied out their closet. And it feels like that. It looks like it, but it's super, super cool. So I'm sure you've got some memorabilia you'd like to donate. I know I've got a lot too at some point. So it's a really, really cool spot just to go in and just kind of go, wow, this is really here. This is very cool. From Elvis's suit to Muhammad Ali's robe to everything in between. It's a very, very cool spot.
To have Oprah's Congressional Medal of Freedom and Clint Eastwood's Academy Award. And then I wanted to ask you 2 basketball exhibits there that blew me away. First was Kobe, his McDonald's All-American jersey. That's pretty special. That's before he gets there to the Lakers and gets drafted. The Hornets and the Jerry West does that deal. And I was really riveted by the Kobe whole exhibit because my kids grew up big Kobe fans. They loved him. And I got emotional looking at it because I said, that's Jim Gray and Kobe. And it's some pretty cool Kobe stuff that you typically don't see from him. And as you know, Kobe didn't sign a lot. And when Kobe passed away, the marketplace, there wasn't a lot of Kobe memorabilia out there because Kobe didn't fill up a couple of warehouses, nor did he think he was going to pass. So to have a piece like that with Kobe Bryant, it really stayed with me.
No doubt. And again, it just speaks to that relationship that Jim Gray has fostered with the athletes that he's covered. And the way that I wrote the column was, it was the actual name of the Hall of Excellence was inspired by Al Davis, because he said he didn't consider him just somebody that he interviewed or had a personal relationship or a professional relationship with. He considered him a friend, and they would have dinner and they would talk. And he said, look, the saying was commitment to excellence. And he was thinking along the lines of Al Davis forever wanting and Mark Davis still wanting a Raiders Hall of Fame. He said, well, maybe instead of a commitment to excellence, we should have a Hall of Excellence. And that's literally where this whole idea of the brainstorm came from. Jim Gray, again, the relationships he's had with people to put their stuff on display, the relationship with Tom Brady now being part of the Las Vegas Raiders. It all makes the ultimate sense to be right at the intersection of sports and entertainment. And that's exactly what Las Vegas has become. And it's like I said, I can't put into words enough. And the cool thing was to have the phone to listen to the different displays and listen to different voices explaining exactly what was going on there. It's Cooperstown, it's Canton, it's Springfield, Mass. It's all of those things wrapped up into one thing. And if you're a Tom Brady fan or a Patriots fan, dig it. If you're a Raider fan, avert ye eyes, because there's Bill Belichick's play call sheet from the Tuck Rule game, and we all know how that went.
Paul Gutierrez, as we wrap it up, I did not see that. Luckily, I didn't. It would have ruined my night upstairs, where I met Mr. Brady, and then Tom spoke and had the microphone. And I know you had a chance to talk to Tom and Jim, and a lot of fans are asking me, and I'm sure more are asking you, what's going on with Tom Brady with this minority ownership? He's traveling the world. He's clearly involved with the Raiders. He has skin in the game, big money. What are you sensing now is coming into this training camp after the draft and Tom Brady's role?
Yeah, I asked him while I was interviewing him about the museum itself or the Hall of Excellence itself. And I asked him, so can I ask you a couple of Raider questions? Sure. It's great. He hasn't spoken on the record about it yet. And as far as I know, Raiders.com, we're the only ones to have him on the record. I asked him how fans could expect him to describe his day-to-day. And he said, well, I'll quote him here, I'm just a limited partner, so Mark's the boss. Pete does his job. Spy does his job. We trust him to make the right decisions. And in the money quote here, JT, I'm just there as a great sounding board for anything they want to do. So that is the day-to-day operations per Tom Brady to me about what his role is at this moment in time. And I get the sense that he's kind of dipping his toes in a little bit, but as the Hall of Excellence will show you, anybody who just dips their toes in doesn't get very far. You got to dip it first before you go full all in. And there's no doubt that he's all in. But the way he described it to me was he's a sounding board. And you could do a lot worse than having Tom Brady as a sounding board for any football moves you want to make.
Was there anything on the sounding board that jumped out at you? Was it Geno Smith or anything that you could kind of put a little bit of a puzzle together for us of the type of player? We know Tom wants winners and people that love football. John Spytek told us that too. But going forward, the sounding board, after the roster's built, it's Chip Kelly with the game plan, Patrick Graham and Pete with the game plan. And then Tom becomes a broadcaster at Fox and is pretty much unavailable when he has that role.
Yeah, I mean, you go any of the big moves that they've made this offseason. I'm not going to say he has his fingerprints on it, but it definitely had to pass a smell test, so to speak, whether it was trading for Geno Smith, signing Devin White, who he played with in Tampa Bay, or even drafting Ashton Genty. they weren't going to make any of this moves if he was like absolutely positively, no, you cannot do that or you shouldn't do that. Anything that happened definitely happened with his, and I hate to use the word blessing because that implicates something stronger, but if he's a sounding board, then they're definitely bouncing things off of him before moving forward. That's not to say that he's got final say or anything. You know, it goes back to Spytek and Pete Carroll, really. And if they've got an idea, they're going to run it up the flagpole, so to speak, and they're going to bounce things off of Tom Brady. And that's kind of the way it's set up in the here and the now, as we are, the last day of June, the last day of the first half of this calendar year. But as Tom Brady told me, he's really happy with the way things are going with the organization because, as he said, he mentioned the other minority owners that have joined him. And he said they're all working together. What winning games in September, it begins with what happens in February, March, and April when no one's really watching. So as far as he's concerned, they've all been hard at work.
Lastly, I'm looking back at the most influential Raider draft picks of all time, have to be drafted by the Raiders. We started with Marv Hubbard. Now we're moving over to Mike Davis. You wrote a great column revisiting Raiders Browns and Red Right 88. That was a hell of a play in our history. What do you remember about him? He passed away. His widow, Mary, passed away recently. The Raiders put out a big statement on that. But Mike Davis, a two-time Super Bowl champ who made one of the biggest plays in the history of the franchise.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I was 10 years old at the time, and I remember very vividly watching that game with my dad. And it was a very cold day in Barstow, nowhere near as cold as it was in Cleveland. But I wrote about that play in particular for my first book, 100 Things Raiders Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die. And I had the opportunity to talk to Mike Davis at the time. This is back in 2014. And we know that he later became legally deaf, but the senses that he still had were very vivid in describing that play. And I wrote about it for ESPN.com a couple of years ago. But the thing that really stuck with me about that was all the things he accomplished in his life, all the things he accomplished in his football career. He only had one memento from his career on display in his house, that football he intercepted in Cleveland. And as he described it to me, he said, that cold cut through you like a hot knife. So, the cold with the hot knife, he was just a real cool guy to talk to. And again, both he and his wife, his widow, both should rest in peace. And just a very cool guy and a great storyteller because the way he told the story was just very, very vivid. And it's still out there. Google my name, Red Right 88 and Mike Davis, and it'll pop up for anybody that wants to read it.
Yeah, I just retweeted it. Everybody should look at it. It's great, especially for what we're doing today. Paul, I'll talk to you in a couple of weeks when camp kicks off. Really appreciate your time today.
Sounds good, JT. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Paul Gutierrez. He's a tremendous asset to the show. When we built our insider network out, he was the first guy I went to, along with Vic Tafer. Vic's now covering the Niners. So we're replacing one or two this year when we look at the insiders, and we'll have Paul, who's in-house now, along with Levi Edwards, Eddie Pascal, the people that we use in-house with the Raiders, and then people who cover the Raiders here in town. Really good discussion about Tom Brady. So as Paul just said, go to Raiders.com. That is the first time Tom Brady has been on the record about his role going forward, and the key word was sounding board to what they're going to do. So if he's at Jeff Bezos' wedding, or if he's in Tokyo, which he was on vacation with the kids, and they're going to make a big decision on Jalen Ramsey or not, do they call Tom Brady? I would assume they do. I would assume they'd run it by Tom Brady as a sounding board. But the Raiders are in pretty good hands now. And Mark has done everything he can, in my opinion. And Mark wants to win, and he's got a lot going on. And I think what he's doing is just giving everybody the opportunity to do their job. And if you don't do your job well, you're not going to be here when it comes to football. Doesn't matter if you're Antonio Pierce, Josh McDaniels, whoever it is. If you're not getting the job done at the pace he wants to see it. Now, Josh McDaniels would have had a really big runway. And he did. Him and Dave Ziegler. I was there for the hiring. I talked to him about it, hung out with the guys, and they had a nice runway until they lost the runway because of some of the decisions when it came to the team and personnel and practice and the loss of games and the way they lost games. And they were gone. Wish them well. They go to other opportunities. Pete Carroll's a little bit different. A gentleman in his 70s who's probably going to the Hall of Fame someday. And will Pete have the ability with John Spytek to do things differently? Sure. I don't know what that's going to be, but the competition Pete thing is real. We're all aware of that. All right. Thanks to Paul Gutierrez, who we've heard from. Still haven't heard from anybody else today. I'm making that point clear in the summertime. I'm pushing back on Raider fans when I have good topics. Pushing back on you to wake up and participate with the show. I don't have 4 co-hosts. I was listening to a show driving in, and 4 people were talking with the host. I said, will someone give me that someday? Will someone for my birthday? Or can I come in here one day, Bobby, and have 3 guys and a gal sitting in a seat cracking jokes so I don't have to do anything? I want one of those shows. I deserve it. And, thank you, Bobby. And your microphone works too. You're always allowed to talk. 702-365-9200. We'll do Mike Davis at the top of the hour. We'll start with him. Tomorrow, Greg Beekert plus another one. And then I'll be away for a couple of days. I got Harry in for me and Vince Sapienza. And when we come back, it'll be Raiders training camp with a lot happening going on over in Deep Henderson. And we're covering it for you. Brought to you by the Black Hole. The Black Hole's birthday. We are celebrating all year. You need to become a member. Today is Mike Tyson's birthday.
And Joe Mazzulla.
Wow.
All right, you got about 4 minutes on the other side.
Okay, got some time in the chat here. Who's that guy, that Charger fan I just put in timeout? You know, I just put a little baby Charger fan in timeout. He's in timeout. I don't know if I put him in timeout for the day or an hour or 20 minutes. Used to be pretty easy when you put someone in hour and 15 minutes, Bobby says. Yeah, I put some guy in timeout, I believe. This isn't a Chargers fan board. You can talk crap all you want, you know, but it's not a Chargers fan board. You know, I often say this radio station, we're not the A's flagship. You know, we're not the Chargers flagship with the Raiders. So we'll put up with some Charger fans. I dropped a bomb on the Chargers this weekend on Twitter. They're changing their helmets again and stuff, and they've never won anything. But they're going to win eventually. I will tell you this, and Jim Harbaugh might be in trouble with Michigan. See all this Michigan shit with Jim Harbaugh? And that's another whole story. But I believe the Chargers will win a Super Bowl at some point with Jim Harbaugh. I do. I hope it's not in the next year or two, but I think Justin Herbert's going to play 15 years and win a Super Bowl. I hope the Raiders win 3. I do. I don't want to see Bo Nix win a Super Bowl. But, you know, I give credit to where credit's due, man.
We got about 4 minutes. So I play that Judge coming back.
Okay.
To run home with me. That's pretty.
Yeah, we'll keep this going for another 10 minutes, and then I'm doing Mad Dog tonight, and I'm off Mad Dog tomorrow. Ain't no need to block me because it'll backfire for you. What is Hero saying to me? Hero, don't threaten me or do anything because I could block you into oblivion and you'd never, ever be seen or heard from again. And it seems like that would have a negative effect on your life because you like this place a little bit. So. The new thing I do on X now, like there was some douchebag today who was going after Gino. And he's a guy I blocked. So I went into his DM. And called him a dope. Now you'd say, why would you do that, JT? You're 59 years old. Why would you call someone a dope? I call assholes who start something with me or someone. I never call anybody out first. Never have in my life in anything. But someone comes at me and attacks me and they don't show up in person and they don't have the balls to look you in the eye, I'll slide right into their effing DMs and call them a dope or an idiot. And I've never heard of anybody getting arrested for calling someone a dope or an idiot. Dope and an idiot is PG-13. No, it's PG, not even PG-13.
I think you can get away with it in Disney movies.
Well, YouTube's good because you can get rid of YouTube people easy. Twitter, you don't want to get rid of them, you know, but.
Half of them are friggin' bots anyway.
Yeah, half of them are bots anyway.
What are you, 7 to 10 tonight?
It was 7 to 10 tonight, yes. Drop a rant, a couple of guests they have. One of the guests maybe we'll replay here tomorrow. And then I'm going to head to Boston and go see the Red Sox.
So where you guys staying at anyway? Sheridan?
No, we're staying. Atlantic.
Atlantic Fish Company right across the street. Can't miss
I'm
it.
seeing the Reds. The Red Sox play the Reds, and on the night we're going, it's 1975 throwback jersey night.
Yeah, I
Interesting.
heard about that.
Yeah.
That's nice. I mean, that's not. I'll remember Game 6, not as much as Game 7, but okay, that'll be fun.
Game 6 is when he did the.
Game 6 was 6.
That is probably the most memorable because the Yankees won the following year, 70. So the Red Sox. Then the Reds beat the Yankees the following year.
So that was the Pete Rose, Johnny Ventura. Aaron Judge.
Got all kinds of carry. Say goodbye. The captain, second home run today. This is a 2-run shot. 12-5 Yankees.
Judge is having an unbelievable year. Judge is having an incredible year. 30 home runs, and with his RBIs, at the count of RBIs and home runs, first player to ever do it. That means Shohei Ohtani hasn't done that. Judge has. Remember that. I point out when Judge does more than Ohtani. So my buddies like Harry Ruiz can understand that there are days and months where Judge is better than Ohtani. But if Ohtani pitches, then it changes everything. It changes everything when he does that. So I was talking to Bobby. Bobby's from Boston. I'm going to Fenway Park Wednesday night. So it's Monday, 2 nights from now. I'll be at Fenway, and it's going to be some throwback night to the 1975 season. And Bobby and I were talking about that was Carlton Fisk waving the home run fair.
Game 6.
Game 6, and then they ended up losing to the Cincinnati Reds. And in Game 6, where the Red Sox beat the Reds, Pete Rose said it was the greatest game he ever played in, and he lost.
Yeah,
Pete Rose.
I would think so. Yeah, I remember that game vividly. I was 12 years old.
And Pete was saying in the clubhouse, everybody was down. He was like, oh, my God, that was the greatest game I've ever been a part of. Mm-hmm. And Pete often talked about that. And for me, it was interesting because as a Yankee fan, the following year, so the Big Red Machine beat the Red Sox. Then the following year, the Big Red Machine swept the Yankees 4-0 in the World Series. And then the Yankees got Reggie Jackson, and the rest is history, 77-78. So my wife's never been to Fenway. I've probably been to Fenway 12, 13 times in my life, mostly to see the Yankees. And when I get there, I'm going to point to her third base. I'm going to point and say, that's what Pete Rose, the legendary photo of Pete Rose sliding in head first, was at Fenway Park. Not in Cincinnati. It was at Fenway Park where Pete had that amazing moment for him there. And then going around Fenway Park, JT the Brick in the third person, top 5 bars of all time. Of all time.
I know a few of
these.
Is
the Cask and Flagon.
I played there.
Yes, the Cask and Flagon is where Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio went and had a drink together. Mm-hmm. They were rivals. And a place I've been to a handful of times when I'm there. It's right behind the Monster.
It's right on the corner.
Right on the corner. So we'll hit that. And looking forward to seeing that. I'm going to struggle because I never go to a game of my teams that aren't playing. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not the type of guy. I'm going to watch the Red Sox and the Reds because I'm going to be at the Throne at Fenway, and my wife's never been there. So I'm going to enjoy it, have a couple of cold beers, but I have no skin in the game. Not that I'm not a gambler, but I don't normally do that.
You know what? You're on vacation. You don't have to. Yeah. You can go to a game and not have skin in the game. Go back, enjoy the game, have a couple of brewskis. Point out different parts of Fenway.
Well, it's kind of like when I go to the Aviators game. I want the Aviators to win, but I don't know a lot of players on the other team. And I just sit there to have a cold beer, have a Modelo, and watch some baseball.
You're on vacation. Enjoy the game.
Yeah, 4th of July for Boston with the Boston Pops and all that. Looking forward to that. So that'll be part of this because for whatever reason, the stock market wasn't doing very well. Now it's doing great. I told everybody on this show, don't sell a thing. You're welcome. That was me. But at the time when we were thinking about Rome and Greece, it was like, if I can't open up my app and look at my 401k, I think we'll move that trip to next year. Maybe. Little did I know, everything would be back better than before.
Do it anyway.
Buy and hold. Don't buy and sell, and don't sell when it's down. Hey, Mike Davis, our tribute to him is coming up next. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.
This week.
Hope everybody's good tonight. Maybe we'll do a stream, maybe not tonight. I don't know. But we'll be around. Appreciate everybody. Can you please take this and share it or let other people know about it, please? Please, please, please. Thank you.
And the JT the Brick Show.